Yesterday, we talked about how the government monopolies, the small water districts, is actually the example we might as well stick with, and how they're can be inherently unresponsive. But it's not entirely always their fault. We can blame them for the lack of communication, but oftentimes what we find when we dig deep what is really happening is their hands have been tied. And so an issue with the Rio Linda, Elverta Community Water District, I just want to make sure I get that right. What we're having is, what it appears to me, we're having a serious issue of miscommunication. Now, because I did some digging, we had my a team member talk to the community. I went to the website, tried to figure out how if I can find some information so I can try to understand the issues this community is having. And while there were some things that were encouraging, the general manager posts a monthly message, but it doesn't tell us very much. I do now know that you're having an issue with the transition from Nationwide to Empower, I believe is the name of the new company. I don't know actually what they're doing. I didn't have a chance to go back far enough through his monthly reports to see what they're actually transitioning from to. But there is some encouragement there. There is at least a pattern of some, if not minimal, transparency. So there's some hope that we can maybe start getting some answers. Because what the community is asking for is just some clear and concise answers to some genuine questions. There's an issue with chromium-6, or if nothing else, pollution from the Air Force Base that has been dealt with or not. Are they still paying for it or not? It's all very confusing. I went and looked at your surcharge list. You've got two separate surcharges, both for $19. One is actually mandated by the state. The other one wasn't specific what its mandations were for or from. And I went and checked out the state health department order, and it read like bureaucrat-ese. Seriously. But it almost appears like the previous board in 2011 asked the state to come help them fix a problem, or they were in financial problems, or it's not quite clear, or the state was threatening to take them over. It's hard to say because it's worded strangely. I'll have to have someone who's kind of better at deciphering that type of language look at it. But there was some issue about 9 years ago, and the state and the board got together and came up with this plan, and that's why you have that particular surcharge. It wasn't particularly clear about what the issue was, even though I'm sure the information is probably there. But let me put it this way. If I was a new resident to Rio Linda and Elverta, and I wanted to check on the status of my water, it's actually not the costs that would necessarily concern me. The cost structure, the reason why your cost structure is changing, by the way, is because of a state mandate. It's actually not your water district that their hands are tied. We can ask them why. We can ask them why they didn't give you a better explanation. But we can tell you why you have an issue about why you can't put wells in it. While I'm not specifically sure why you can't put a well in it, I suspect it's because in the last major drought, we lost a lot of our individual water rights. And that's an issue which you bring up with your state legislature, not really with your local water district, because it's out of their hands. In that case, you're actually kind of mad at the wrong people, I suspect. I don't know that for sure in your case, but I suspect that's what it is. And so the real problem here actually isn't probably that the water district isn't doing anything significantly wrong. It's that they haven't communicated the problem and putting all these pieces together. As if I was a new resident, like I was saying, I wouldn't be able to understand how we got to this place. There's not enough information on the website in a formula, in a format that can be easily understood. What were the exact pollution problems? What did we do to solve it? Are they actually solved now? And why are we still paying surcharges if that problem is solved? Shouldn't those surcharges go away? And if you actually need the money, it be rolled up into the higher base rates? These are the kind of answers that people want, and they're not really getting clear answers. And so that's the real problem. The problem is there's a lack of trust because people want clear, concise answers, and they don't feel like they're getting them, or they can't find them relatively easily. And so, while I pour my poor staff under the bus, poor Robert, he never dealt with issues like this before, and he's gotten kind of thrown into this, but that's what happens. That's how we solve problems. You jump in. You do it openly. We do it honestly. So what we're going to do going forward is me and Robert and the community, we're going to try to get together. We're going to get and talk about their issues so I can come up with a handful of clear, concise questions, clear issues, so that we can write some letters, try to set up a meeting, and just to get some clear answers. We can I can have up to 9 people on this format. So if the community wants to do an online open format, you can come on and here, do it on 9. We can hold up to 9 members. We can have an open forum on water issues if you would like, if you guys would like to do that. If you want to set up a more private Zoom meeting, I'm happy to attend. And I'm even happy to attend an in-person meeting. If you guys want to set up an informal meeting in a park or however you want to do it, that's completely fine. Robert has my schedule. You guys get in touch with him. And then moving forward, we'll take those, we'll get those answers, and we'll figure out where to go from there. Because I suspect most of your problems are not with your local water district. Now, I still think if you're going to raise your rates or make massive service changes or substantial service changes, we'll tone down, you should have at least a cursory outside audit of your books and your operations. We're not talking about an invasive audit. Just have someone come over, take a look over everything and say, everything looks okay. You may want to keep an eye on that, and that. Everything looks okay. You may want to keep an eye on X, Y, and Z. It doesn't have to be invasive. It's not about finding anything wrong. It's about making sure the public understands that we're within reasonable parameters, that their money isn't being wasted. If you're going to ask them to give more money that they don't have right now, you damn well better be able to prove that you're spending it somewhat wisely, that you're within reason. No one's asking for hyper efficiency, but they are asking for answers. They are asking for assurance that it's not going down the drain. Because that's all that people want. You want to be able to trust that their water department is delivering clean water honestly and ethically. Because we've seen what happens in other areas that are often neglected. Their water is often neglected. And so if you can't trust your water, your basic water department, how can you trust the rest? What we are trying to show here now is that you can be open. You can be honest. You can solve problems without fear. There's nothing to be afraid of. We ask some questions, we get some answers, and we find out what's going on. And hopefully it's just miscommunication. It's just, it's a hard thing to communicate. It's often complicated. And sometimes you lose institutional memory and you forget why we got here. And so when you ask a question, how did we get here? There may not actually be anybody who knows. And so it's going to take some work. But then so be it. This lack of trust in our systems is corroding our very culture. And if it starts with our local water department, then it starts with our local water department. But we will rebuild that trust with transparency. It's the only way. So, please, if you're members of the community and you have interests that you think need to be exposed, doesn't mean we can help. Doesn't mean every issue can be expressed this way. We only have so much time and so many resources. But we will do what we can because that's the right thing. But we will not tell you no lies either. Not going to promise anything because we're nobodies. You have to solve that problem. You have to get us elected. I can't do it alone. We run a whisper campaign. Go whisper. Thank you for your time. Good night.